Okay, so these two experiences happened on April 8th and April 10th. And yeah, I wasn't really expecting an experience, but I got one on April 8th. And because it was like, I went back to bed kind of late, like 5:30, or I woke up and then went back to bed and it was already like 5:30. But I still got one. And okay, so the first one was on April 8th and the second April 10th. And the second one, let's see, the second one was felt like more virtual reality, like in the 3D state. The first one was virtual reality, but it felt slightly in the dream state, slightly, but it was still virtual reality. When you get all of these experiences, you can tell the difference. But anyway, okay, so the first experience, and like I say, the same beings. It wasn't Joel that gave me these two experiences, but some of the same beings keep giving me experiences over and over again, and they keep doing the same things. Like having me go out into my garage and crap like that, or putting black people in my scenarios and guns and stuff. Like the being that, it's probably a flat-faced reptilian being. The being that gave me this experience with the gun and the black people was the same one, more than likely, that gave me the experience to Ferguson, Missouri. That was complete virtual reality, like 3D feeling. So the second experience with me going out into my garage, that was more 3D virtual reality feeling. But this first one was slightly virtual reality. It was 100% virtual reality, but more in the slightly more of a dreamy state. So it must make a difference when they abduct you, so to speak. What brainwave state they abduct you or whatever. Okay, so anyway, the first experience. Okay, so I'm laying in bed and I start talking to the beings, and then I go back to sleep or whatever, and then bam, I get this virtual reality experience. Okay, so I get up out of bed. At this point, of course, I'm under the scenario. And I'm not really getting up out of bed physically. So I get up out of bed. I'm under the scenario now. And I get up out of bed and I go to my back door. And there's this black guy knocking on my door, like banging on my door, wanting to get in my house. And he looked only about 18 or 19. He was very young. 18 or 19 black kid. And he was saying a bunch of things like, I need in your house, I got to get in your house, and stuff like that. But I did not let him in. I would not let him in. Now, I've had many experiences like this where, just like this, where people barge into my house and stuff, and they're all on my channel too. Except they do actually come into my house and stuff. But this time, I wouldn't let him in or whatever, and he did not come into my house. But the whole time he was like banging on my door, and it seemed like I did actually. I don't really remember looking through the window. Like I actually was just. It almost seemed like I did open the door and I was talking to him face to face. But anyway, I would not let him in my house, and I looked around the yard, and I'm thinking, I can't believe he jumped my fence, because I have a lock on my fence. And, or on the gate door or whatever, I have a lock, and you can't get in unless you try to climb the fence. And, of course, I've had thoughts like that before. Like if somebody breaks into my yard, they would have to climb the fence or whatever. Actually, the aliens freaking unlocked my lock and cocked the door open. This was like 6 o'clock in the morning, like either a year ago or a couple years ago. Luckily, my turtles didn't get out of my yard, But yeah, the aliens are always doing stuff like that, like unlocking my locks, opening the doors and stuff. I mean, they completely unlocked it, took the lock off, put it in another hole, and put a couple of the bricks down, and cocked my door open like, a half foot. Or a little more than a half foot. My turtles could have easily gotten out, but I caught it at like, 7:15 in the morning. I caught it that it was open, so I hurried up and closed it and locked it and everything. But I think I had the combination lock then. But yeah, they can do stuff like that, and they did stuff like that. Well, they did stuff like that a lot here when nobody was living in that house next to me. And they did it a lot back in, when I was in Kansas City in 2000. They did that exact same thing with the back door door. I had a, an enclosed patio with a privacy fence around it, and it had a combo lock on it, and they completely unlocked it, took the, they cocked it open a few inches, the whole door, and they took the lock out and stuck it in another hole, and they turned it around backwards. The loop, they turned it around backwards. But yeah, so they do that crap a lot. But anyway, so I was thinking, okay, I can't believe this guy's about to break into my house, and he just jumped over my back fence. And he was just kind of banging on it and yelling like he wanted in, he wanted in, he wanted in. But I wouldn't let him in. And I knew at some point, I got my gun. And, or no, wait a minute. I was about to get my gun. So anyway, so after he started banging on the door, I wouldn't let him in, and then I turned around and I walked down the hallway. And I looked over to because there was, his 3 black female friends were knocking on my front door. And there was a tall white man. And so anyway, before I opened the door, before I told the younger black guy that, he couldn't come in or whatever, like before I told him that, after I told him that, I turned around and I walked down the hallway, and that's when I heard, the knocking. After, what I meant was after I started having interaction with the black guy at my back door, I heard the other knocking on the front door. So I turned around and I went down the hallway, and because I was about to get my gun, well, over to the left is my front bedroom, and I noticed it was like all messed up, like somebody had already been in my house. Like as if, I don't know who it was, but somebody had already been in my house. And the crate at the side of my bed was like knocked over, and the bed cushion, the comforter was kind of messed up. So I was like, wow, somebody like had already been in my house. And this is all under the altered state of consciousness. Okay, so anyway, then, because I was about to get my gun, because I do have my gun laying there. I never really use it or pay attention to it, but I have my gun laying there by the bed. But anyway, before I opened the front door, because I was walking down the hallway and I was about to get my gun, the gun was just sitting there at the corner of the doorway, to the right of the doorway. And it was jacked up, like they had taken, whoever got into my house, they had taken it apart, and the little coil was like hung out of it. It was like half a gun because they had jacked with it and took it apart. And see, that's kind of funny. And the coil was hanging out of it. So as far as I remember, I ended up not picking up the gun because I knew it was jacked up. And so anyway, and the funny thing is, so like all these thoughts, the aliens know all these thoughts that you have, and they put all these thoughts in your scenarios. So yeah, before, I have taken my gun apart many, many times before. Not the current gun that I have now, but this other gun that I have a long, long time ago. Over 20 years ago, I used to take it apart all the time and take the little coil, the little springy coil thing out. So the aliens were mocking that. That's why they put that in the scenario. So because I really felt, in this whole scenario, it was virtual reality, I really felt unsafe, you know what I mean? I didn't feel like that they were nice people exactly. So, I didn't want to let him in or whatever. So then his 3 friends, were banging on the front door. So when I opened the door, I can't remember what they said, but they were just talking. There was like 3 young black women, probably about 23. And they were just talking, and they were like, we need in your house and blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to let you in my house. I don't know who you are. Okay, so then over to the right of the three black women, there was this tall white man, about 6'3", and he was kind of balding on the top and the back and the sides of his hair. And it didn't take me long to figure out who he was. He was that guy. The aliens put him in my scenario. He was about 6'3". He was the guy. Well, anyway, he was like an agent. He was the guy. This whole experience was like being gang stalked in my dreams. It was a scenario about being gang stalked, so to speak, but it was in this virtual reality scenario. Yeah, so it was just, the theme was gang stalking, except the reptilian decided to give it to me in the altered state. So anyway, it didn't take me long to figure out who that tall guy was. And he's the one that's always going into Starbucks about 12:30, and he seems really nice, and getting, like a coffee or whatever. Because I used to go to Starbucks all the time. But I don't anymore. But yeah, so I used to see him 9 times out of 10, at 12:30. He would come in after me or whatever. And yeah, he's pretty tall, probably at least 6'3" or 6'3 and a half. He may even be 6'4", actually. But yeah, but he seems really nice. So anyway, the aliens put him in my scenario and made him be an agent. And anyway, so he started talking to me, and I was like, you mean you're an agent and you set all this up? And he's like, yeah. Anyway, he set it all up. He concocted the whole thing and made these black people, these kids that were total strangers to me, gang stalk me, trying to get into my house and bang on my back door, bang on the front door. And yeah, the three women were, really hyper at one time, act like, we need in your house and blah, blah, blah. But I never would let them in my house. But it's like somebody had already been in my house because my front bedroom was jacked up. Now this is all altered state of consciousness. Okay, so anyway, and I'm sure there's a few bits and pieces that I'm forgetting. At one point, I do remember looking to my left and seeing the girls run around from the side of the house. It's like they ran around to come to the front porch. After the tall guy started talking to me. That was another part of it where I do remember that. But anyway, so yeah, because as far as I remember, when the agent started talking to me, or maybe it happened in reverse, when the agent started talking to me, the girls had ran off and ran around the corner to the side of the house. But anyway, I'm sure there's some other bits and pieces that I'm forgetting. But anyway, so yeah, it didn't take me long to figure out to remember who that tall guy was, because I was thinking, okay, he looked familiar, and that's who he was. It's that guy that comes into Barnes & Nobles all the time. Starbucks all the time at Price Cutter to get a coffee. But in the scenario, he was kind of an asshole. And like I said, he said, yeah, I set them up to gang stalk you. I set this whole thing up. These kids were just totally strangers to me. And this big tall agent, totally set it up for them to harass me, so to speak. Okay, so anyway, so the second scenario, okay, this was a trip too, man. Now, this had nothing to do with gang stalking. The second virtual reality scenario happened on April 10th. And, okay, so this is how it happened. I got up out of bed, so to speak, but I was under the scenario. I was under the altered state. And I walked into the garage. Okay, I walked into the garage, and my car, which is this car right here, this is my exact car pretty much. It's a Honda Civic 2001. And it was outside. Okay, the garage door was raised up about 3 feet, and my car was outside the garage door, and it was stuck. It was all rammed up and stuck under the garage door. Basically I had driven into. It was basically like I had driven into my garage door and jacked it up, like I had turned on or pressed on the accelerator and rammed into my garage door. Except in the scenario, it literally, the 3 feet of the whole bottom of the garage door was crinkled up, crinkly. It was crinkled up. And so my thoughts were this. I was like, wait a minute, is this for real? Because I really did think it was real, because it was total virtual reality. where, you don't know that you're under an altered state of consciousness till you wake up back in 3D. But sometimes I do become aware. Most of the time, it depends on who the being is that gives it to me. They'll make me know that I'm under an altered state towards the end of the scenario, or sometimes I'll know just 2 seconds after I'm abducted or whatever. So anyway, I was thinking, oh my God, is this for real? This can't be for real, because I know I went in real life. I went to the bookstore the night before, and I knew that I totally remember parking it inside the garage and closing the door. But I really did think it was for real because it totally felt real, and I didn't know I was under an altered state at this time. So like, I was like, is this for real? Because I know this can't be for real, but I really did think it was for real. Because I know that I had parked it in the garage completely, and I put down the garage door, and I did not damage my garage door with my car. I knew all that. So then it's kind of like I had went back inside, and then I walked back into my garage. The second time, this is so funny. Now, I don't know why they put this in my scenario. The second time, they made me know that I was under an altered state. The second time, I walked into my garage, and it was this old, like, 1970s station wagon that was just kind of, a little bit, under the garage. Well, actually, at that point, I think the garage door must have been at least halfway up, because I saw the whole it was like halfway in my garage. I saw the whole car. The whole car was like, half of it was halfway kind of cockeyed in my garage. And it was like a 1970s not Oldsmobile, a station wagon, except I can't tell from this picture if this is a big one or a small one. This was more of like a smaller one, and they do have some smaller ones. They did make those real big ones, but this one was a smaller one, and they did make some smaller station wagons back then. So this was a smaller one that was, kind of, like I say, the garage door must have been pretty high, because I saw the whole car. And, but of course the beings, they have a way of, even if the garage door was like completely closed, they could still make you see through the garage door and see the whole station wagon. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so the garage door must have been halfway, or halfway up, or more than halfway up, because I saw the whole station wagon. And it was kind of cockeyed, parked in my garage, halfway. And I was just kind of like laughing, like, oh my God, now I know that this has got to be, this can't be for real. I must be under, some kind of scenario or abduction or whatever. I knew it couldn't have been real, because for some reason, when I saw that funny looking 1970s, oh, the aliens probably did that. They did some paranormal activity the other day. Actually, they turned on the freaking radio, and I was like, oh my God. And now they just knocked down my little star off of the sink, which that's easy to manipulate. But the radio, you have to go up to it and just press it. You got to press it pretty hard to get it on. And one of the aliens, probably Julio, because I don't know, it could be a reptilian roaming around in here, but Julio is a gray, and I think he's pretty much always in my house. But I know the reptilians, they can be roaming around too sometimes, because one of them bitch slapped my lamp over a few years ago. See, that's more of a reptilian thing, and more of a reptilian would be doing that. But I could see a gray doing that too. So anyway, so when I saw the station wagon, and it was like a 1970s, I've seen these station wagons before. You don't see them much now, but it was kind of a smaller one, not one of the big, huge ones. And it looked just like this, as a matter of fact. And I'm thinking this is probably 1970s. And that's when I was just kind of like giggling, like, oh my God, I know this can't be for real, because looking at that old station wagon, I knew that triggered that I knew that this couldn't be for real, and that I was under an altered state. Okay, so then it's kind of like I go back in my house, and then I go back out into the garage, and it's kind of like I'm looking through the garage door, or the garage door is already completely up, and I'm looking through, where all the houses are, right? Well, in real life, I have all these cookie cutter houses across my street. Under the scenario, when I was looking out across the street, whatever, there was no street. It was just 100% pasture. I mean, like 100%, beautiful nature pasture. No street, no houses, no mailbox. And it was just pasture, just like that. When I looked out the third time around, outside my garage. And yeah, that was the aliens that knocked that off, because my cats are not over there. Hana has knocked it off before, but she is not over there at all. I don't know where she is, but she's not over there in the kitchen on the sink. So that was the aliens that did that. And so yeah, it was all beautiful pasture. There was a bunch of small trees. Beautiful green grass, beautiful green trees, but they were short and small. And, okay, here's the other funny part. You know what, though? And I know the aliens copied this because I had just been watching some movie with some fire and stuff in it, and I can't remember what it is at the time. But I had just been watching a movie prior to this experience with some fire and stuff in it. So anyway, when I looked out and saw the beautiful green pasture, I mean, it was so funny. It was total, virtual reality. It was beautiful. And certain parts of the grass here and there was like on fire. Just, like 30, 40 feet apart. Just some small fires here and there. The grass, there were some fires. And I don't know what that was all about. But yeah, so anyway, when I saw that, the third time around, I still knew that I was under an altered state. I knew that I was under a scenario. But the first time around, when I went to my garage and saw my car stuck under my doorway, stuck under the garage door with the door crinkled up. It was all crinkled up. And in real life, I doubt a garage door could even do that. But the aliens, they're funny. They can do things in your altered state that can't be done in real life. And the second and third time around, I knew I was under, the scenario, and I knew that I was under an altered state of consciousness. But yeah, so like I say, the third time around, I looked out where all the houses should have been, but there was no houses, and it was all beautiful greenery and trees and grass and stuff, with a few fires here and there. And like I say, I know they put the fire in it because I can't remember what it was, because I've been watching a lot of shit on Netflix, a lot of movies and stuff. I can't remember what movie I was watching, but there were fires and crap in that movie. And so the aliens made, some of the grass, certain little sections, like 20, 30 yards apart, on fire. But other than that, it was still like beautiful greenery and small, short, pretty green trees here and there, 30 feet apart or whatever. But yeah, there was nothing. There was no houses. There was nothing. It was all empty land. And yeah, see, they probably put that in my scenario because I keep having these thoughts of how beautiful it was in the back of my house, all empty woods, empty land, empty woods, empty land, but all woods. And now they're getting ready to build 25 or 24 houses. They already put down the asphalt. They put down the street already. But they haven't started building, but they're going to soon. They're going to start building, so I'm going to be hearing like bam, 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 bam. Like knells all the time. But yeah, I'm sure they said the project was going to be done in like 2.5 years, but it's been about a year already. But it was several months when I went up to the meeting. Me and my mom went up to the meeting. It had been, they didn't even start till several months after that. So, but as far as when we had a talk with the owner back there, it's been about a year already, but they're going to have it built. They're going to have them all built probably in less than a year from now, because they're doing it pretty fast. But anyway, let me see if I'm forgetting anything. So no, I guess, well, I'm sure I'm forgetting a little bit here and there. But yeah, they didn't tell me exactly they didn't relate to me, the aliens, they didn't relate to me when I knew somebody had already been in my house. You know, I wouldn't let anybody in my house, but I knew had somebody previously had already been in my house. When I saw the messed up front bedroom and the gun and stuff laying there, all messed up and jacked up, they didn't relate to me who actually was in my house. So I don't know if the agent had already came in my house or if the black kids already came in my house or not. But I was scared. I was scared under this whole scenario pretty much. I was kind of scared. I had that feeling of fright, you know, because, you know, I mean, it was virtual reality, except it was more slightly under a dreamy feeling state. But it wasn't a dream. It was total virtual reality. It was just slightly more artificial feeling than the second experience, which felt like 3D. Total 3D or whatever. But, yeah, they're kind of fun. I've had more too, but I just can't talk about all of them. Well, actually, yeah, I could talk about another one real quick, but yeah, I don't have time, I don't think. But it was kind of virtual reality about the neighbor. I was standing in front of the neighbor's house where my mom lives, her neighbor. And it was just kind of funny. But anyway, I don't think I have time to talk about that one. But it was no big deal. Thanks for listening.